President Joseph has translated a portion and says they contain the history of the person with whom they were found, and he was a descendant of Ham. Through the loins of Pharaoh, king of Egypt, and that he received his kingdom from the ruler of heaven and earth. William Clayton's Journal, May 1, 1843. And also yeah. How can you trust Joseph Smith when you can check on him and nothing checks out? Very difficult. A couple of other situations with Joseph. Joseph believed, apparently, through writings he put in the Book of Mormon and the Book of Abraham, that if you really need to, God says it's okay to lie. In the Book of Mormon, not only lying, but murder was okay if you were really in a jam. I have thought that before. Yeah. No, I haven't. People have thought about me probably, but yeah. And in the Book of Abraham, God commands Abraham to lie when Abraham is before Pharaoh, so that Abraham will not lose his life and tell Pharaoh, Sarah is my sister, not my wife. I love it. I have been commanded many times by God to lie myself. So, I think I understand. So when you have characters in the book lie, it says more about the author than it does about truth. The first vision. You know about the multiple contradictory accounts. You know that the 1832 account, the earliest, is handwritten in Joseph Smith hand wrote it. You know it's a Christian epiphany being described, that probably a good number of Christians felt they had received under inspiration in those days too, as they imagined Jesus after prayer forgiving them of their sins. It does not mention God the Father as one of the visitors who appeared to Smith. It does not mention religious excitement around the Smith's home. It does not mention persecution by enemies, nor being attacked by the devil, nor being told by Jesus to remain aloof from the Christian churches, which Jesus called apostate. The 1832 vision resembles a common Christian epiphany. The later accounts, coincidentally, become more remarkable, with even more detailed and specific information, more extraordinary. Some have suggested that the later accounts serve several purposes, but at least one was to head off at the pass certain turmoil and trauma within the Mormon community, so that Joseph Smith could preserve his standing as the president of the church and the prophet. Extensive and conclusive research on memory is pretty clear. As time passes, we all tend to embellish our memories and add events that did not occur. And as my wife will tell you, forget really, really important events that did occur. Subconsciously attempt to make ourselves look more credible, more competent, more intelligent. That's how we humans are wired. Dan Gilbert, in Stumbling on Happiness, talking about memory, said, "We tend to cook the facts to maintain or move toward greater happiness. A negative situation is rationalized as it wasn't that bad, really, or likely an experience that didn't happen the way we insist. Our memories tell much more about what we believe and want to believe about ourselves than what really happened then. The priesthood restoration. Nothing is found in the early documents about the restoration, about priesthood restoration. It crops up about 5 years after the priesthood restoration was supposed to have occurred. David Whitmer, in an address to all believers in Christ, said, didn't happen. I was with him the whole time. Did not happen. That was he and Sidney Rigdon's little invention. More than 400 words were added to a revelation in the Doctrine and Covenants, because none of this stuff appears in the Book of Commandments. None of it appears in any of the early revelations. And of course, there's still no date for the Melchizedek priesthood restoration with Peter, James, and John. Kind of hazy on that one. And then there are so many competing and contradictory accounts that the evidence is pretty firm. It never happened. One very important, I think, deception that's still carried on is by sanitized church history is that the church leaders did not profit from their positions as leaders of the church. And the evidence suggests otherwise, is the kindest way to say it. One example, Sarah and Maria Lawrence immigrated to this country from Canada. There you go. Man, I was waiting. Okay. And they were orphans and worth about $8,000 in English gold. I believe it was Josiah Butterfield. Correct me if I'm wrong. I'm sorry, I was wrong. See, it feels good. I believe it was Josiah Butterfield who was appointed as their guardian first, and then Joseph Smith took over that responsibility, moved the girls into his home, of course, married them, so to speak. And when he died, A.W. Babbitt became the guardian of the two girls and went to Emma to get their money. He found that about $3,000 was removed from the account by Joseph for room and board and clothing. Babbitt said, okay, whatever. Where's the $5,000 that remains? It could not be found. William Law, in an interview, speaking about this incident, said, Babbitt was a straight, good, honest, sincere man. He could find none of the money. But Joseph left 2 splendid farms near Nauvoo, a big brick house worth from $3,000 to $4,000, the hotel that Joe had kept, a mass of vacant town lots. All had been transferred to Emma's name. Wilson Law said, and this is the fellow whose character is constantly blackened by church history. William Law stood up and said, I saw how things stood. And he ordered his property in Nauvoo, Illinois to be sold, and the money and the proceeds given to the Lawrence girls. Nothing from the church, nothing from Joseph Smith's estate. Smith, sent people on a couple of different expeditions because of revelations he received to go to this town and find gold or great treasure. And on one of them, he came back, after they came back empty-handed, and announced that some revelations are of God, some are of man, and some are of the devil. That's such a firm explanation. It's just something you can sink your teeth into. Brigham Young, second president of the church, died extremely wealthy. He declared personal property worth $102,000 and real estate valued at over $1 million. He drew on the tithing resources of the church and at a later date repaid part or some of the money or services. No interest was ever paid. The ability to draw almost at will on church as well as his own funds was a great advantage to Brigham Young. You think?